This is a stock analysis update for British American Tobacco. Please remember that I do these videos just for fun as a hobby and always speak to a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decision. So I first bought my British American Tobacco back in January of last year. They've actually come up with some fairly consistently solid results over the last 5 years consecutively. But when I last look at them, and please do look at this video if you like, well, the share price has been falling, and I sold half in March of this year. And with the price now dropping below my stop loss, I've now sold all of the BATS that I had. Using stop losses is a very important part of my trading strategy. So I hit the stop loss, so I've sold. It's all about preservation of capital. But this drop today of about 8% in response to an RNS. So here's that RNS. And it's actually a little bit of a waffly one. In the main points, there's nothing particularly dangerous. They say that the organic revenue is expected to be at the low end of their 3 to 5% guidance, but I don't see how a 3% rather than 4% result there could be anything that dramatic. It's interesting that they say that their new categories will be break even this year, which is good. But it's not actually until we get right down into the meat of the chief executive's statement that I think we see the reason why the share price dropped by over 8% today. Because they say that in 2023 we'll take a accounting non-cash adjusted impairment charge of around 25 billion. This relates to some of their acquired US combustible brands, and they're now assessing their carrying value and useful economic lives over an estimated period of 30 years. So the last time I did a video on British American Tobacco, I did actually go into that as a potential risk. By the way, if you've not seen that video, make sure you go and have a look at it. But those issues related to their intangible assets, where we see that following the Reynolds takeover, they had a ridiculous increase in intangible assets. And this I attributed to their brands, like such as the Newport, Lucky Strike. So for me, it was questionable why these brands were valued so much. And when I looked at their asset composition, and bear in mind they do have a lot of debt, actually mostly because of that takeover, but you could see that brands are half of their assets. And I did point this out in the last video that was something I didn't understand, and so it was a potential risk. So now they're chopping off 25 billion of that, plus they're going to be amortizing this over the next 30 years. So all of a sudden, this massive chunk of British American Tobacco's assets have essentially gone up in smoke. And so now they don't look like so much of a bargain, with the price to book obviously going to be adjusting because of that. And in this graphic that I do, I've adjusted this to take account of that 25 billion being chopped off of the assets, and also I've adjusted the market cap to today's share price. And interestingly, despite the drop of share price, the market cap is actually still looking expensive versus the net assets compared with where it was before that 25 billion impairment charge. So I have to sell my British American Tobacco. Bear in mind though that a lot of that is because I did have a stop loss employed. I'm a bit worried about what's going on in the US, and this, which is from my previous video, this risk of their branding being a lot of their asset value seems to have come out as a serious problem for this stock. So I'm kind of glad to be rid of them actually. They've been a real kind of irritation and took up too much of my time ever since owning them. The sector chart doesn't look good. I'd kind of identified this as perhaps a support area. They seem to be downside of this now. I think it could well be a long time before things settle out. Before I even looked at them again, I'd perhaps be looking at the sector chart in the first place and wait to see a pattern here that was as still as a mill pond before I then bothered to even look at the stocks. So I hope you found this video useful, and I'll speak to you at the next one. I do videos like this one just for fun as a hobby. It's for entertainment purposes only. You'd be really stupid to make any kind of investment decision based on this video. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decision. Prices can go down as well as up.